Booyah, and it's time for the Game Sports Podcast. This is your host, David McCaig Jr. Now, the Game Sports Podcast is powered by 91 Network and featured on Spaces. Spaces is through Village Media and Sue today. But hey, don't hesitate to pause this if you are listening on any audio platform and check out the 91 Network YouTube channel. Make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. The Game Sports Podcast is on there. The full-time podcast is on there. A variety of content for you to enjoy. Easy for me to say here. Now, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever you are, wherever you get your podcasts, we also appreciate the interaction, so do not hesitate. As well as, speaking of interactions, social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, at the Game Sports Podcast. Check it on out. Now, I am joined by Brendan McCarthy. Brendan, my friend, how are you doing?
Doing great, Dave. Good to be back with you, man. You're looking sharp. It looks like every week when we record, you get a fresh cut.
Fresh cut. I had a cut. I went, this is a nice little side topic. I went with the 0.5 fade on the side so that it stays shorter for longer while the top gets longer. So it always looks kind of like a fresh do. I looked it up on social media.
Love it. It's the Dueling Gingers podcast.
I love that. I love that reference. Love it. And you, my friend, looking sharp. The nice neutral hat. I like it. You just look set up. You look set up for success today. I want you to know that.
Back-to-back weeks wearing the neutral hat. I actually got this for free from my sister, but she got it for free. I think it was like buy a case of neutral and you get a free hat at the LCBO. So I like the hats with the lining or the string, whatever you want to call it, and then
nice little design.
It's a nice material. It's got the holes here so you don't sweat. So it's good for the course, but also good for podcasting.
Now, speaking of golf, a little sidebar here that we didn't plan to talk about really, but golf. You and Par were going back and forth on the golf conversation last week in the chat, and I just came out of the woodwork and just put a random comment out there just to try to fit into the conversation because yours truly doesn't really golf. But it sounds like you and Par might need to have a golf date together. Yeah. I feel like based off the text exchange in the group chat, Par and I are kind of on the same level. So perhaps we can firm up a date and play, and we can actually meet in person, Par and I. We can stripe the ball down the fairway. Now, speaking of Par, he couldn't join us here tonight. Obviously, those who follow the Game Sports Podcast religiously, obviously Alex Par, who you see on here often, is taking another vacation week. It's been a tough time since the Leafs have lost for Alex. I think he's taking it a little bit different and really focusing on his work and his golf game because he's not, as he would say, has nothing in between the ears right now that's distracting him. So there's a little jab for you here, Par. Nonetheless, Brandon and I are going to take you through this journey here tonight, and it's going to be a little bit different. As everyone knows, we are introducing towards a new format with being the one segment and lots of great things coming here for the game. But Brendan and I are going to touch on kind of a few topics at the beginning before we dive into Top Shelf, and then you're going to have me getting into baseball solo at the end. So, Brandon, what I want to get into first is basketball. Now, if I could, we will soon, it'd be a ticker down there saying, basketball. And there used to be a segment on the Game Sports Podcast for basketball, and it used to be called For Three. So there used to be a 4-3 segment that we used to do, and that was back in 2018. That hasn't been since. So we're not reviving that segment by any means, but there's a reason why we're bringing up this segment. And the reason is, obviously, the NBA Finals is going on. Got some good Canadian representation in that Finals. SGA is an absolute stud. Canadian basketball is just looking very promising in every which way in the future, right? Are they going to be better than the United States? Are they going to be better than even some of the Spain? Or we don't know. But when you have SGA at the helm, Brooks, and a couple guys that are coming up, I'm very, very excited for Canada's future with basketball. But that's not what this point's about. I want to talk about the Toronto Raptors. That's Canada's only team in the NBA. And obviously the most recent Toronto team to win a championship in the core sports is the Toronto Raptors, and the first team to win since 93, essentially, speaking of the core sports in Toronto. No offense to the Argonauts. I'm not trying to jab at the Argonauts here, but I am talking MLB, NBA, and NHL in its most part. And, one thing I've always believed with the Raptors, Brendan, was believe in Masai. Masai Ujiri is and should be recognized as, dare I say, a god in Toronto. The guy has been nothing but successful in Toronto. A lot of playoff runs even before, and obviously winning the playoffs against Golden State, the big move with Kawhi. And obviously, since the championship win, it's been a little bit of a slipperier slope for the Raptors through more of a rebuild, retool, definitely more of a rebuild kind of phase. And, this offseason that's upcoming for the Raptors could be very exciting. And I'm going to tell everyone here, Brendan and I are not unrealistic fans. We're going to give you of Toronto sports or sports. We're going to give you the full laydown of what we think, and you could take what you want with that, because if you heard us talk about Toronto, obviously some of our points may have been far-fetched, but the Raptors are actually in running, okay, for Giannis Antetokounmpo this year. For trade rumors are circulating, and Kevin Durant is also trade rumors that are circulating. There's rumors that the both of them could be traded to the Toronto Raptors and have a court, and with of course keeping Brandon Ingram in that hold. So and now it makes you think if Scotty Barnes is going to be on the way out, or if they keep him and have all four of them, that would just be unheard of. And, that's probably not going to be the case. But if you have an Ingram, a Antetokounmpo, and Durant 3, that's pretty powerful coming out of the East. But I want to stick to, Durant, I would say might be even a bit more realistic than Giannis, sort of, because of just the attainability to get him. But Durant's going to want to go to a team that's going to be winning, right? So if the Raptors did get Giannis, then I think they would have a chance at Durant. So that leads me to Giannis. The guy has a lot of connections to Masai Ujiri. And if you don't know, search it up. It's a good read. Obviously, Masai wanted him in the draft, in his draft year. There's family connection there. And there's even a funny clip with, now I can't remember, Serge Ibaka, when he did a kitchen broadcast. And you can look it up. He had Giannis in his kitchen when they're eating food, and Serge would ask him questions. And one of the questions said, when are you coming to Toronto? And Giannis said, I can't answer that, man. Can't answer that, right? He was playing for the Bucks. But there's always been a love between Masai and Giannis because of the connection, and a rumor that would always be the perfect fit. Now there's a chance that might actually happen, Brendan. And the Raptors are considered top 2, if not a front runner, to trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo. What is your thoughts on that? And should Raptors fans get their hopes up? Speaking as a Toronto fan, should you, let me repeat, get your hopes up as you hear Ohtani in your brain, and maybe you hear other names, Connor McDavid next year, all these names that you hope to get in Toronto? Is Giannis's destiny to come to Toronto, to the Six?
I would say to fans, don't get your hopes up about Kevin Durant. I think it's been a constant, perennial, I'm trolling with the Raptors. Obviously, the city, the organization would love for my services to be part of this team. Absolutely. He's won. He's a winner. He's a Hall of Famer, right? But what you can get your hopes up is about Giannis Antetokounmpo, because this guy, he's done everything that the organization in Milwaukee has asked him to do. He's won a chip, and you know what? It's time to get out of Milwaukee, right? It gets a little stale after a while. And like you said, there is that connection and familiarity between Masai and Giannis. I think it's an absolute real thing and a real possibility for that dream for Raptors fans to become a reality. And I think you do everything in your power to do so, and everyone is on the trading block. That means Scotty, that means Grady Dick, that means Jacoby Walter.
Yep.
The list goes on.
Jonathan Magbo, right? Even Abaji, those guys are all on there. The 9th overall pick, that's got to be on there.
Look, you just signed Brandon Ingram to a 3-year deal, right? You got Ingram and Giannis in there. The Raptors have to become relevant again. You mentioned that it's been 6 years since they've lifted Larry O.B. Honestly, Dave, since COVID or 2021, it has truly been laughable to watch the Raptors, and going to home games it's not even exciting anymore, right? So you got to they already got Ingram, that'll fill the seats, that'll draw attention, but you got to do everything in your power to go to the next level. I think Masai has it in him. I mean, in 2018, Kawhi didn't even want to come to Toronto, and he got Kawhi and Danny Green to come to Toronto as a package deal. So he can make it happen, right? That was the summer that Toronto was living in luxury. It's like Kawhi and Tavares to Toronto.
Yeah. And the Leafs were sick. You had belief about the Leafs, and you weren't as mad when they lost. Well, you were mad when they lost in the first round, which had a bit more forgiveness back then than you do now. But the Raptors actually made that jump. And you know who the Raptors ran into all those years in the mid-teens? It was LeBron with Cleveland. If you think of the team that they had, Kyle and DeRozan, even with Bosch before, this team had to run into a guy named LeBron James. If he was on the Cavs, if he was on Miami, right? The time LeBron leaves the conference is when things got a bit more wide open in the East. And obviously, people always bring the factor in, what if Durant played in that Golden State series. What if, okay, what if Connor McDavid left the Oilers last year and went to Toronto? Okay, all these what ifs, you can always bring in what ifs to any sport. If it's hockey, football, baseball, what if Ohtani came to the Blue Jays last year like everyone thought he was? What if the Raptors actually re-signed Kawhi Leonard? Right? You can't bring in the what ifs, but the thing that isn't a what if is they made the playoffs. I know it was over 5 years in a row. I thought it was 8. It was how many years they made it to the playoffs in a row, something like that. I don't have that stat. But they ran into someone named LeBron James, arguably the best player of all time. I'm a big MJ fan, so I always say MJ is number one. But I know that's a very great argument for people to have between the two. But that just of that alone, basketball could be a sport where one guy could help you win a series and tilt it. Look what Kobe did with LA. A lot names go on. And that leads me to Giannis, the effect that he would have, not just on the city, but on that team. And if you put a team that has Ingram and Giannis together on the floor, look out. The defense is good. They can put the ball in the hoop. They got good depth around him. You can center him with a good third guy that can shoot the ball really effectively and a fourth guy who's got good on the post, right? There's this that they would automatically become top favorites in the East next to the Knicks. And I guess you can say the Pacers right now, and even the Pistons are really climbing the rankings because of a lot of years they've had to retool. But again, these what if factors, Brendan, it's a big part of sports. And right now we're talking about what if you acquire Giannis, but I think it's one of the more realistic rumors that I've heard in Toronto for a little while. Like for real, I feel because of the background of the history between Giannis and even Masai Ujiri.
Yeah, and Masai's not afraid to make those tough decisions if it means getting over the hump or getting another chip. You have to do it. I remember when they traded DeMar. And he's still sour about it. But at the end of the day, Masai's licking his chops saying, I got this team and this city a championship right here in Toronto, right?
Do you think back, and this might be a good clip, okay? Maybe it is. So I'll tee it up. What year were you, may I ask you what year you were born?
95.
95. Okay, I'm a 91. Okay, so we don't have not too far apart. When you were, let's say, being into Toronto sports, Jays, Chiefs, Raptors, and I'm sticking to a basketball point here. But did you think that you would see a Raptors championship before you would have saw another Blue Jays championship, which I know you didn't see 93, nor was I. I was also young, so let me rephrase. Did you think that you would see the Raptors win a championship before the Blue Jays or the Toronto Maple Leafs when you were a kid?
No.
And why is that? No. And do you have an answer for that? Why?
Because the NBA is filled with divas, and I never thought the Raptors would actually have a good enough pitch to acquire the likes of a superstar a la Kawhi Leonard. It seemed more possible for a Blue Jays team or a Leafs team to do so, but the Raptors, when you look at all those three teams, seem to be in third for me for actually winning a chip. And they proved me wrong.
And what was a big part of their win? And is taking that chance to get over that hump, changing the DNA of a team to help shape. You traded DeMar DeRozan at the time, Jakob Poeltl, a pick, and you got Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green. But you know what you also got out of that? Yeah, Larry O'Brien trophy. That's what the future considerations part of that trade was. And those are the tough decisions that good management take when they want to win and they recognize a change is needed. And I'm not hinting anything. It sounds like I am. Maybe I am a smidge. Okay. But you took that and they knew Kawhi was leaving. They knew maybe they had a chance to keep him slightly, but there was a chance that he'd be leaving. And Toronto fans are not bitter about Kawhi Leonard leaving. Yeah, it's sad, but look at what he brought this city. There's a different component to that. Kawhi Leonard left on his terms because he wanted to be close, live with his family in LA, and he brought the championship here. He was the main part of why the championship got brought here, right? So I agree, Brendan. I would have never, if you would have asked 10-year-old Dave, so that would be a 2001-year-old version of Dave, saying, who's going to win first? You have a Raptor hat, Blue Jay hat, and a Leaf hat. I know it wouldn't have been the Raptors. They would have been my third choice. My first choice would have been the Leafs for two reasons. One, because of where my heart lies, but two, because in 2001, how good the Maple Leafs were. Okay, that's that is the other thing. To say that team never made the cup final, never won more than 3 rounds, or even come close to win a championship, you would tell young Dave that would have blew his mind, because I was sold to that. But then obviously you had the dry period, and the Raptors took that leap, and look at what they did, Brendan. It was wild.
And then you get the 15-16 Jays. That team could have easily gone punch for punch against the World Series champs in 15 and 16, who were, remind me again?
So in 2015, obviously, who they lose to? So they lost.
It was Giants. Well, they lost to the Royals.
I'm trying to remember the top of my head now. So they lost. The Royals won that year. The Royals beat the Mets.
I think you're right. In 15?
15.
And then 16, they lost to the Cleveland.
And then the Cubs
Cleveland,
won that
now
year.
Guardians.
Yeah, and the Cubs won that year.
And the Cubs won it that year.
And I had a soft spot for the Cubs. That was nice to see.
Oh, my God.
I was so okay with that.
First title in 108 years? Come on.
Yeah, can't go wrong. So my point is, though, circling overall to wrap this up, Giannis to the Raptors is very realistic, in my opinion, and I'm sure you obviously agree. So
absolutely agreed, man.
Raptors will trade for Giannis. I'm calling it. It's happening. I'm manifesting it. This is actually going to happen, and I'm pumped to see what Masai does. Build the guy a statue. Kyle Lowry, Masai Ujiri statue right outside, and maybe add a Kawhi. I don't care if he was here for 1 year. Add that statue. Put that out there. And for shits and giggles, put a Vince Carter statue just because you want to recognize the Raptors' legacy more. Because when I walk around Toronto, when I'm there, I see the Legends Row there. Hey, the Legends Row with the Leafs. And there's been guys who have gotten rings on that team. But if I see a Mitch Marner down the road, or I see an Austin Matthews one, and there's no cups in this city, I don't want to see no damn statue of these guys on Legends Row. Matthews will get one because he was a captain. But now segueing to hockey, Brendan. We'll jump in. I went a little extra there with basketball. It was a fun conversation, kind of a different topic that we don't touch on too much on the show. Getting to Top Shelf. Look, there's a couple points I want to talk about with Top Shelf. Firstly, a couple feel-good stories, if you will. Firstly, Hudson getting obviously the Rookie of the Year. Not a surprise. It was a great year, though, of rookies. Obviously, Macklin, Celebrini, too. Got to give credit there. I feel like, this was a good year. There was more competitive year than I thought it was going to be. I didn't think Macklin would be as, competitive as he was. I didn't think that Hudson would be as impactful as he was. And I know he's a Hab, but the kid's looking special. When you see him play out there, he has confidence. He's fitting in nicely. And I think you got to admit that was a good choice by the league to get him to be crowned the Calder winner this year.
Yeah, Lane Hudson is an absolute dog on the back end for the
Hudson.
Canadians.
I'm Lane Hudson. Yeah,
Lane Hudson.
Not talking about his brother. Lane Hudson.
Lane looks like he's about 11 years old, but he skates like the wind. His edge work is phenomenal, making highlight reel plays. He's going to be a stud. The Canadians got an absolute gem.
They did. And the other award that I'd like to point out, I know you haven't seen the clip of this, so I'm not going to spoil it too much. I know I kind of did touch on that. For the Bill Masterton, Sean Monahan was the recipient chosen for the Bill Masterton Trophy. And for those who hasn't, whatever word you want to look for, seen the clip for this, it is so touching. It is obviously Sean Monahan signed in Columbus. Money was right, obviously, but he wanted to play with Johnny Gaudreau. That was his good friend from days playing prior. And unfortunately, Johnny Gaudreau passed away tragically before the season. And there's been a lot of Gaudreau love this year when it comes to the World Junior team, when it came to the Four Nations team, the World's team as well, that won their first World Championship in 90 years, something crazy like that. And then Sean Monahan and the Columbus Blue Jackets overall had to persevere through a lot this year, losing their star player, arguably their best player that they had on their roster, and someone who, don't forget, signed in Columbus, and everybody was shocked. Somebody gave Columbus a chance. I remember reading those quotes a lot, and Johnny left Calgary, went to Columbus, chose them over New Jersey. I believe the Rangers were in the running as well, if I remember correctly. The Islanders, one of the two New York teams, and he chose Columbus. And he, obviously, with help with Monahan coming in, they were building a good route, like a good team there, and they still are. But the Masterton Trophy, Brendan, goes to Sean Monahan, And Meredith Goudreau is the one who delivered the Bill Masterton Trophy as a surprise to Sean Monahan. Obviously, Johnny's wife is whom delivered that. They had a little surprise planned, and when Sean opened the door, there's Meredith with the trophy, right? And it was so touching to see. And I know you haven't seen the clip yet, but from hearing it from what I've told you here and off air, obviously this trophy, you don't win it because of skill. You don't, obviously you have perseverance is in there, obviously, so obviously you play effectively. But this really highlights the good quality of people. It highlights the, like I said, perseverance, the sportsmanship, the dedication to the game, especially through challenges. If you're battling sickness, if you're battling, hardship, when you, like in this instance for Monahan. And this story is the type of stories that I love to talk about when it comes on this pod, because it's such a touching moment for Sean Monahan and his family. I'm sure that Meredith shows up there, Brendan, with the Bill Masterton Trophy.
It's incredible. It's amazing. A lot of heavy hearts. And I still sometimes wake up and can't believe that Johnny Hockey is gone. I remember that day waking up and reading the news and not wanting to believe it. But obviously, that story is, like I said, incredibly touching. And Sean Monahan was super close with Johnny. And man, that was, I'm sure, incredibly emotional for Sean and Meredith and the family to get through.
Yeah, honestly, that is, we won't dive into the case or anything, but obviously I got my opinions on what I think should happen, but that's a whole other conversation. Not either way, justice will never be served is the way that I will look at it in that regard. But obviously Monahan plays through Johnny. Meredith talks about that. Great clip. Check it out. You can get it on TikTok anywhere you want. It's worth the 3 minutes plus or ish to watch. Definitely touching. So, Brendan, I also want to actually give a quick highlight. TJ Oshie retired. When I think of Oshie, I think of Team USA in a lot of ways with shootouts. I think of Oshie just leaving St. Louis to go to Washington and how heartbroken St. Louis fans were. But he had a heck of a career, so I'll give a little clap to TJ Oshie. But I want to talk about the Cup final here because I know we're obviously going a little bit extra here, and I'm going to be mindful of your time, which is always a challenge on my end. The Edmonton Oilers, at this time of recording, we're recording on June the 10th, and it's currently 7:39 p.m. to give you guys the exact time. June 10th, 2025 at 7:39 p.m. We're talking about the Edmonton Oilers, Florida Panthers, continuing top shelf here on the Game Sports Podcast, powered by 91 Network. Look, the Stanley Cup Finals just had Game 3. Game 1, Edmonton came out with buzzing. Great game. Game 2, buzzing game. So many penalties. So many. I lost count. I think there was 11 in the first period, if I remember correctly. A lot of penalties. Goes to double overtime, and of course, someone named Brad Marchand gets the overtime winner, because he does that. And there was a TikTok that I saw, speaking of TikTok multiple times here, saying, first time, like the Family Guy clip, it was a Leaf fan talking to an Oiler fan. Yeah, it's not our first time seeing that as a Leaf fan, okay? Marchand knows how to score big goals, and that was a heartbreaker of a game, and I think that could have been a game that Edmonton let kind of slip away, and they could have walked away out of Edmonton with a 2-0 series lead. But we all know 2-0 series leads against Florida mean shit, okay? But 1-1 going back to Florida, and the game that we watched last night, which is June the 9th, as I mentioned, we're June 10th right now, was like watching a game that I've seen recently. 2 different games that I've seen recently with another team that me and this guy that is on the show with me here cheer for. It was almost like looking in a mirror. It was almost the same thing. Brennan, it's Florida walks away with Game 3, and that was a garbage game. Garbage hockey game.
Edmonton's their best competition, though. So you got to think they'll be coming back Thursday with a vengeance, right? Like, yes, it would have been really nice for them to get that double OT win on home ice. The place would have erupted, and you'd feel just a little bit better. Like, obviously, 2-0 leads, like you said, to Florida don't mean anything. But in the Cup final, you feel a little bit better about yourself, just with bonding with the group, getting ready, just a little bit more breathing room, less uptight. Okay, you take the split, you go back to Florida, a really, really tough barn to play in as an opponent, and you get mopped. So now it's like, okay, must win Thursday, because Florida is playing that. It's crazy, but they're basically playing last night as if it's like game 1 or 2 of the opening round. Like, they seem so fresh and calculated and structured, and that's the Paul Maurice effect. But they were just doing everything right last night. they were getting in Edmonton's head. And, Wallman was fine today because he was losing it. He was spraying water at the bench, being a clown, sucker punch Matthew Tkachuk. This is how the Florida Panthers play. They drive you into the muck. They get in your head. And I'm sure they're waking up to that team breakfast going like, yeah, we got them right where we want them.
Yep.
Right? Now, Skinner was a no-show. McDavid was quiet, got rocked last night by Ekblad. It was a tough night. It's a flush-em game, though. It's a long series. If there's one team to do it against Florida, it's Edmonton. They came back from a 3-0 hole last year. But both teams are significantly better than last year. And like I said, with my gut instinct, Florida will win. And they're a little bit, just a touch better, a little bit more crisp. So must win Thursday because I think it's curtains and if they lose.
And the driving question that really comes up is Skinner or Pickard? And I'm going to go to you in a sec, but I'm going to say first, you got to stick with Stu. I feel like despite what Pickard has done earlier in the playoffs, you can't give up on Stu yet.
That's a tough one because I'm not so hellbent on Skinner. Go with your guy. It's kind of like all right, do we keep our faith in Stu or do we just have a fresh Pickard go in, get a dub, even it up, go back to Edmonton, Stu get ready to play next week? That way he has ample rest. So I'm sure there's some strategy going on in the coach's room, but I'd almost say play Pickard.
Okay, going with Pickard. See, honestly, the Oilers yesterday, you brought up points, and when I was watching the game, I had everyone knows Dane with the show. He's been a part of the Game Sports podcast for a long time. He's more on a casual basis now, obviously doing a lot of good working things with the MNR because here in Canada, there's a lot of forest fires on the west side. So it's obviously he's doing a lot of work. So he was sitting though beside me, and there was a lot of swears last night. He was also there watching Game 7 of the Leafs Panthers, and so he understands the frustration. And I told my wife, I said, the last 3 games that we've watched in this house, Game 5, Leafs Panthers, Game 7, Leafs Panthers, Game 3, Oilers Panthers. What was the score in all those games?
Touchdown, 1.
Do not watch a game at this house this year. Okay, I'm just saying. If I told my buddy Dane, I said we might have to go to my parent, might have to go somewhere else to watch the house or watch this next game with you because I promised him I would watch the Cup Finals with him. And I bring up that point because watching him, and he was saying, "Oh, that's typical. That's a penalty. Why is that a penalty?" And the reffing, which I'll get into in a second, which was a problem, but he was talking about, oh, what an annoying player this guy is and whatnot. But Bennett, Marchand, Tkachuk did their thing yesterday. That is not news to this guy or to you or to anyone that knows these Panthers that Marchand and Bennett, they're going to give you a lick if they have to. They're going to jab you. They're going to hit your goalie. They're going to push your goalie. Mikola's going to cause a scrum. They're going to get under your skin. They're going to finish their checks. This is a team that is built for this type of hockey and is a very good hockey team. I see that Listerainen, Lundell, Marchand line. I think of that as shades of Stahl, Cook, and Kennedy. Friend of the show, Tyler Kennedy, Sioux native, who won the Cup against Detroit. And that third line was the difference in the series. And this line's better, more talented than that line was. No offense to Tyler and the crew there. Florida is something that is, do not give them confidence. You can't let them in games, and you can't match them on their intensity, because that intensity is to get under your skin, to jab at you, to chirp at you, chirp your wife, chirp your dog, chirp your kid, whatever it is, and they will do whatever it takes to win, because that's the business, and that's why they're these guys on this team. And I was sitting there, Brennan, going like this when I saw Marchand and Bennett. As a Leaf fan, I'm saying, okay, you know what? I'm sold. Get me these guys. What do I need? What needs to be done? Who needs to go? What charity do I have to donate to? What do I need to do to get these type of guys into the DNA, I'll mention that here, of the Toronto Maple Leafs? Because the Oilers looked like the Leafs last night because they were playing down to what the Panthers level is. And that's not, I don't mean that as an insult. Usually that is. The Panthers suck you in, and then you can't get out of it. You stay in their head. They make you try to keep up, and they can't. It was wild.
What's that line I like, Dave? You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That is Florida Panther hockey, right? Like they got a weird side to them, right? I saw an interview of Matthew Tkachuk yesterday, and he's like, I'll take a punch to the face to win the ultimate prize. Like,
yep.
These guys are just wired differently. They run through a wall for Coach Paul Maurice. They're clicking on all cylinders. Everything's going right, and they got Edmonton just searching for the bench last night. Like, it was just an absolute yard sale. Like, truly was. Like, it was a crapshoot. And again, gotta think Edmonton shows up, maybe scores first on Thursday. But, as discussed today with a few coworkers, you blow another lead to Florida in a winner-take-all series, I don't think they're going to concede again.
Florida's better this year than they were last year. So is Edmonton. I would say Edmonton is improved too on a lot of aspects, but Florida's better. And Florida won last year. So take that the way you want to take it. I'm not counting out the Oilers. I've said this and you have said this. Heart is with the Oilers to hopefully win the series. Gut is telling us a lot different because what we see and what we saw yesterday, I'm seeing a lot of deja vu. Okay, getting a lot of into their heads, doing their job. That is it. That is Florida Panther hockey. That is terrific. And I love that line, take a punch. I'll tell you right now, and I told Dane this last night. I told my wife this today when I saw her after work. I've texted a few friends. Give me one shift in the NHL in a Leaf jersey, Edmonton jersey. I don't care. Anything to try to beat this Florida Panthers team, okay, I will go so hard. I will pop my quads. I will break my back. I don't give a shit. I will block a shot, and I will find a way to score a goal and work my ass off. And I bring up that point as an example because that's the intensity that you need to have to win. I'm not saying I'm the guy who's going to help you win. I'm not. But that's the attitude that you want to have when you go out there. You would have blocked that shot. You're going to score the goal. Marchand's going to push me. I'm going to say, I'm going to laugh in your face. It would piss him off if you kept laughing at him. Bennett, you know what? If you push him, he's going to go, oh, he's going to dive. He's going to do what he has to do. Don't get in their shit. To skate away and laugh, man. Evander Kane, Corey Perry, Kasperi Kapanen. These guys, Wallman last night was just, after the 10-minute mark, gone. The guy wasn't playing hockey. He was playing rough outdoor hockey is what he was
fine today. He was fined like $10,000 or something for his antics.
Yeah, you can't, right? They got you down there into the mud. So let's just say, Brennan, let's give this as an early prediction. Game 4. We made our prediction with the Cup Finals and everything, but we're going to talk about Game 4. Keep it to that just for sake of relevance on this episode. Score and winner.
Say 3-2 Edmonton.
I like that.
Regular time.
I'm going to go 4-3 regular time. I'll go one up because I was thinking 3-2, but I like 4-3. Okay, then McDavid's going to be a dog. That's the guy to watch on Thursday. Expert friggin' Mia talk for you there. The best player in the world is going to be the best player on the ice.
Have another beverage there, Dave-o.
I should. It's my first. The podcast tradition, one drink a show. But nonetheless, Brennan, I know we went a little extra today, so thank you for your time. So we talked basketball, we talked hockey. Stanley Cup Finals continues Thursday. Weird schedule, as you said. June the 12th is the next game at 8 o'clock. Puck drop in Florida. Edmonton needs to bounce back, or we're going to see might be a quick Stanley Cup final, if you know what I'm saying. But nonetheless, Brendan, I want to say thank you for taking the time, my friend, for coming on the show as always.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome. So Brendan's going to go. I am going to talk about baseball. And Brendan, again, thank you as always. I'm very thankful of what Brendan does. I'm very thankful for what Alex does. All the crew here on the Game Sports podcast as we obviously continue forwards for the segments for the Game Sports podcast. A lot of change coming with the show. And if you're on video, you'll see that Brendan has exited. And the great talking to Brendan, I obviously kept him on for, it's 37 minutes into this show, so I definitely ate up to my time that I wanted to. I allow 45 minutes for an episode is what we tend to do, especially in these one segments. And I did plan to have our segment done a little bit earlier, but basketball kind of went a little further. So obviously I knew Brendan had to go actually a little bit earlier than this. So again, thank you to Brendan and to everyone on the game who's always taking their time and putting up with me being a little extra. And to you, the listeners, if you've listened this far and you haven't hit like, follow, and subscribe, what are you doing? Just do it. Just do it, if you know what I'm saying. And people have asked, before I get into baseball, about the special editions. I've gotten texts about it actually this past week. I took a break from doing them. I wanted to stick to the news portion. We're doing some updates with the show in the background that was planned for September, October 2025. Minor things, but also big things at the same time. But I am going to be getting back into some special edition recordings throughout the summer for you to enjoy. That was certainly a big thing that we'd like to do, and obviously got a lot of listeners on the show with that. But we're going to continue to get back to that here on the Game Sports Podcast. So just remain patient because obviously we have a lot. Everyone has a lot going on, but the main thing for me is actually I am going to be having a son next week on June the 18th. My wife gets induced, and we've had to shuffle schedules around for the last couple of weeks because of some change in my plans. So that is why some delays on episodes and all the fun stuff, because life gets in there. Right. But as I ate up another minute of my time, I am going to get into baseball. And the reason why I want to dive into baseball without the presence of Connor Henderson or Jordan Trudeau, which breaks my heart, is, well, I didn't confirm in time with Connor here tonight. And tomorrow night we have our Men's League baseball game. And usually Connor's good on Wednesdays to record, and I won't be able to record tomorrow. So I'm going to be doing a strike zone bit by myself. Obviously, I sit here today wearing a Toronto Blue Jays t-shirt supporting the Toronto Blue Jays. Vlad in the background there, obviously with a mix of my background there, as you can see. But getting into the world of baseball, obviously the Blue Jays, one of the hottest teams in baseball, doing quite well right now with a very good back and forth game with the St. Louis Cardinals last night at the time of this recording. But, the big thing is that I talked about last week that I wanted to stress is finally the Red Sox have done the right thing by calling up Roman Anthony. The guy has had Facebook, Instagram, TikToks. Look, getting banked to play, and the Sox finally give him the opportunity to be playing in the MLB. Obviously, when it comes to the All-Star game, there's a lot of things coming around the corner. The All-Star game for the MLB is one of the more entertaining ones because, despite that some pitchers aren't going as maybe hard as they would, they do try because it matters. It has a piece that matters. And Connor and I are going to dive into this a little bit more when he's here. But the home run derby, love that. I find that the MLB does the All-Star game right, and it fits well with the sport. Other sports, it's not the same. MLB, hats off to you. That, of course, Roman Anthony, All-Star game is 2 points I want to touch on. But the big thing I want to give love to is, and I can't believe I'm doing this given the start to their season, but the Toronto Blue Jays finally picking up their bats and getting into the win column. And doing so without Anthony Santander in the lineup, but obviously maybe he's been an ingredient that hasn't been the right fit there in Toronto. The guy has been one of the best home run hitters in baseball before his injury. I use quotations there if you saw that on video, because is it an injury or is it more of a benching? Who knows? I'm just making up stuff. But Santander really not working out right now in Toronto. Hoffman having his struggles as well. Some of the new additions that haven't been big additions have had their struggles and have been some critical points into the team's losses, let's say, and to not doing so well. So the Toronto Blue Jays obviously tied with Tampa Bay right now in their division. There's still so much baseball to go, like just under 100 games still remaining. So I don't even like to talk about the standings, but teams out of the gates, the AL East, the Yankees are looking good, but the Orioles, Red Sox not playing some good baseball. The Blue Jays have an opportunity to win their division and make a good playoff run because the AL is nothing pretty. You got teams that are pretty. I guess you can say the Yankees are. The Detroit Tigers looking real pretty. Minnesota, I'll give you credit. Houston Astros, I'll give you credit. But everybody else, the only ones that majorly stand out to me are the Yankees and Tigers. And oh my God, Detroit, that team is looking real good. It's very nice to see. And when it comes to the rumors about trading Derek Skubal, I don't care if you're a Tiger fan and you think he needs to go because you want to get assets for him. You keep that guy. The guy is an absolute stud. You find a way to keep him. Now, when you speak over to the other side of the league in the NL, there's a bit more, let's say, teams that I think are a little bit leg up, okay, having good years. And obviously the Padres, the Giants, the Dodgers looking good in the West. When you have a division with the Dodgers, anything's going to be tough. The Cubs looking good. Obviously the St. Louis Cardinals being where they are in the standings, I thought definitely more of a kind of a retool type year for them, but still, nonetheless, the New York Mets 42-24 at the time of this recording. So listen, the Toronto Blue Jays And the AL, wide open. The NL, the division favorites are there. The Mets, you can say the Phillies as well in that division. The Cubs, the Dodgers, Giants, Padres. Look, a lot of things spoken for. The worst team that I've seen in quite some time, the Colorado Rockies, 6-25 at home, 6-28 on the road, 5-17 in the East. Against the West, they're 3-13. They're 1-8 against the Central. Look, at home, they don't win. On the road, they don't win. It's not a good team. But obviously, they had some success against the Marlins, who are yet another basement-dwelling team. But the NL certainly has its top dogs that I think could paint the playoff picture a little bit more easier. But when it comes to the AL, look, the picture can be painted in a lot of different ways. And if I'm the Blue Jays, the money you spent this offseason and the moves, you look at ways what you need to do to try to be successful. You see that at home, you're very successful. On the road, you're not. And when it comes to playing your own division, being under 500 will not bring you success. They need to be better against their own division and better on the road with staying consistent at home. I still think the Blue Jays have an opportunity to make an add or two when the All-Star break hits and the deadline to try to get them into that wild card spot or more. And do I think a wild card spot warrants a good run at a postseason? Absolutely. In the world of baseball, you can get into any position and find a way to have a good run in the playoffs. Tigers were point whatever chance last year making the playoffs, and they did. And look at the run that they did. But ultimately, the end of the finish line to even think about winning a championship coming out of the NL, you're going to have to face the Dodgers. You know the Dodgers are going to be the team that gets there this year, despite some inconsistencies at odd times this year, especially against the Central, where they're 6-7. But this is a team that just struggles a little bit on the road. At home, they're great. They're going to find ways to win. That's the team you have to go through and measure up your team against. So the thing is, experience in the playoffs is a big factor, too, for future growth on the team and exposure in the organization. I think the Blue Jays, as much as you want to win, go for it to win. Getting that additional playoff experience that's beyond a wild card game will be critical for the growth of Vlad, for the growth of Bo, and for other players that are a part of the Toronto Blue Jays to keep building a foundation to have long playoff runs and a World Series. So, in the world of baseball, I went all over there for you. Standing updates, talked about the Rockies and Marlins being basement dwellers, an open AL, a not as open NL, but yet it's still open. The world of baseball, the season is in full swing, of course, just over 60 games in, and it's been a very entertaining season, to say the least. And I'm excited to see how the rest of the season goes, if we're going to keep seeing these series and games, divisions, especially in the AL, be so close, or if we're going to start seeing some separation. Going to be very interesting. Let me know below what you think. As I said here, I'm 2 minutes over the episode, and I am starting to get the buzz on the wrap-up, so I'm going to make sure I get to the wrap-up portion for you here. I appreciate you taking the time to join the Game Sports Podcast. If you're new, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. You can find us on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at The Game Sports Podcast, and just make sure you like, follow, and subscribe, of course, and interact. You can also check us on 91 Network. It's a YouTube channel and that we are powered by, and we're also featured on Spaces, which is through Sudaday and Village Media. The Game Sports Podcast is located in Sault Ste. Marie, so of course a lot of good connection there with Sue today. If you are in Ontario, you may have a Spaces opportunity near you that you can be a part of, so make sure you dive on into that. Now, the last point that I want to mention, with obviously mentioning about 10 minutes ago, with my wife and myself going to be celebrating the birth of our son within the next week from today is when we're not getting induced, but it's going to be the day prior to being induced. So just about a week and a day from now, on the 18th of June, she's going to be induced. So there will be a little bit of a delay in the schedule for uploading the show next week, depending on if we're going to do it before the 18th or if we're going to wait till after. So in advance, we appreciate everyone's patience for the upload. We do plan to have a few more consistent uploads before we start getting into our summer schedule, which I will remind you as well, is that we start looking at more of some special edition shows, sporadic shows, but more uploads on a bi-weekly basis for the months of July and August until after Labor Day, when we start getting back into football. And yes, I didn't talk about football for a reason this week, because I am hoping that Justin Heichel will be joining yours truly for the next edition of the show to talk a little bit about some football off-season moves leading up to the upcoming season. But nonetheless, we will talk football soon. I know I get texts about In the Pocket too. Everyone loves In the Pocket. And if you truly love the show, if I see you texting and you're not following on any platforms, I'm going to call you out on it. So make sure you do that. So This has been the Game Sports Podcast. The next episode will be TBD within the next week to 14 days. I want to thank you again to everyone who takes the time to join routinely. But if you're also new, glad you've been able to join us. Make sure you come back for more. I want to say thank you again to Brendan McCarthy, the legend himself, takes the time out of his day to do this with yours truly. And also everyone here on the Game Sports Podcast that takes the time, but notably to Brendan today, it's greatly appreciated to have someone to talk to instead of just talking to myself, which I could do for hours, as you know. Until our next episode, I am here to remind you, keep your stick on the ice, swing your bats, catch your touchdowns, drain your threes, and shoot your shots. Booyah.